It's Friday, June 30th, 2023. So, let's just start off with one thing off the bat. This is a rickety setup in two ways. So understand, Lando's on a hotspot because he doesn't have internet quite yet. And I'm running a completely new configuration of how the audio recorder that we've used for a long time is.
I'm actually more worried about you than me because my hotspot's been pretty stable.
I'm not too concerned because I've been testing with it, but I haven't done it like this.
Like I ran HD video off of my hotspot on a 70-inch television, which I was
if you could do that, then I'm really not too. I'm not too concerned about what we're going to be running into.
No, I'm pretty good. We were rickety when we first started, but we're pretty stable now, and we record on our own system. So,
and we're doing better than that underwater submersible. Couldn't resist.
Oh my god!
I don't care. The only one of that before we get into the shill segment.
You've done the radio host thing.
I have. Haven't I? Isn't that great? Isn't it great? No, I have no sympathy for any of them except the kid. The kid got forced into it. That sucks. The rest of them, I don't care.
Hold on.
I don't care.
I'm gonna give you the. They signed a waiver that mentioned death in the first 3 pages.
Sure.
The guy who set that thing up. He, in the community of people who are like him, the other people have turned around and said, you know what? He was very intelligent, but he liked to skip safety elements.
As he himself said in many interviews. So that's not a surprise.
So here's the thing. Yeah. You can skimp on safety, and 99% of the time you'll get away with it, right?
Yeah.
It's that 1%, though, where things go wrong. You know, that suddenly you're like, oh shit, you know, and it goes for anything. It's like your seatbelt, you know, or it's like if someone came to you, you know, your seatbelt will make sure that you survive 99% of the crashes you get in. But if you get in that 1% crash, where your seatbelt fails, you know, and it's like this guy was in that position where he was I think he was increasing his margin of error.
Oh boy, was he.
You know, so and then the other thing I read, which I thought was quite funny, was a lot of people sitting there going, what this situation really has illuminated is that really rich people have turned themselves into figures of hate. Because right as it was going on, you were hearing. Yeah.
It's terrible. I'm the worst. I am the worst.
I know you've got a new toy. This is going to be so bad.
No, that is the end of it. It really is the end of it. Because
okay. Don't say something that's not true.
No. I mean, this show, this is going to be a good setup for movie clips.
You're going to get tempted.
No, I probably won't. But what this is actually going to be useful for is because I've done lines from movies that are funny, and stuff, but I'd rather be able to play them. It would be funnier if there's something really funny in the movie. So that's really what I have it set up for.
At the end of the day, a lot of people were like, oh, look, a bunch of, super rich people paid to see the Titanic. Things went wrong. You know what? There's a lot of people who, there was a whole ship of refugees that sank. Nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people rightly have pointed out.
Yeah.
That there's a real hypocrisy in this, and there is. So it's absolutely true.
So, and that's the thing, is that at this point now, the super rich have made themselves into figures that we hate. And they've made it so that, if tomorrow you found out that Jeff Bezos was on his space shuttle and the whole thing fucking vaporized.
Yeah, I don't care.
Would anybody give a shit?
Yeah, I know.
You're kind of saying like, listen, I feel bad for his family or his kids, but otherwise, like, you know what? He knew what he was doing.
Well, the fact that he laughed at safety inspections, you know what? If it had just been him, it would even not be. It'd be like, okay, well, he rolled the dice knowing it, but it's very clear that I'm sure he didn't tell people getting on that sub. Oh yeah, although
no, here's a rule of thumb.
People think that they're above things because they have money.
No, here's a rule of thumb I found: if something is controlled by an Xbox or PlayStation controller that is not an Xbox or PlayStation controller, don't get in it.
Also, no seats is a bad sign. If you're going to a depth that far and there's no seats, I don't know what you're paying for. I
don't know about the no seats thing. I'm willing to let the no seats, because there's times where you'll be like, let's get rid of the seats for weight.
When somebody says something like that to me, then I have other questions.
What about the no seats thing?
Well, if you're telling me that you had to get rid of no seats because of the weight.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you get in a situation where every ounce matters, right?
Yeah, okay,
and you
except
tell me,
that's
and you say,
true
hold
of
on,
rockets, and they have seats.
Yes, but that's because of the
what?
The weight of gravity on your body. They have to strap you down, or else you'll be a puddle at the back of the fucking shuttle.
Yeah, but it's more arguable that a spacecraft needs more weight savings than a submersible.
Yes,
Submersible needs protection from pressure.
What I'm trying to say is, if they told me, hey, for sake of weight or whatnot, we took the seats out so that we could put more money into the weight of the armor and sealant and whatever else, but that's a different story. I'd say sure.
No.
But they didn't. They were just trying to trim it. They were trying to make it as I don't even know. I mean, it's
well, the reason that I think they didn't care is because they only expected to be down there for like 2 hours, and they figured that was okay. Yeah. But still, it's not so much the reasoning. It's just I've seen video of the inside of that thing.
Oh, it's frightening. It is.
It's a steel coffin, which is now it's not even that because it's pulverized.
And you know what? I watched somebody was passing around a video of the Mythbusters where they did the deep.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Michael Biehn in the Abyss, because that's what I've seen a lot of.
No. The deep dive helmet from Mythbusters. Have you seen this?
Oh yeah, sure. I remember the episode.
They put the pig in the deep dive suit, and then they took the pressure away, and basically it's like entire body got shoved up into the deep dive helmet.
Yeah, liquefied upwards.
Yeah. Don't fuck with the ocean. Ocean pressure is nothing to play with.
Well, it's my mother. I was talking to her, and she said, "Well, how are they going to get the bodies?" And I said, "Mom,
they don't. Are you kidding me?"
I said, "Mom, there are no bodies." I said, "They're basically fish food. They're liquefied meat.
Yeah,
they're nothing."
Pulp.
Yeah. She didn't understand what that was. I'm like, no, you have to understand that the amount of pressure. I said the only benefit is you're dead within 2 seconds. Like, you are not suffering.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, you'll hear noises maybe, and that might start you worrying. But once the event happens, I said the only benefit of that is it is probably the fastest way you could die that I could think of. Because
you know what?
I don't know if there's a faster way.
I will say this: watching the Mythbusters in the pressure suit thing, it doesn't look as quick as you'd want it to be. There was a moment there where like the body juices were flooding up into the helmet, and yeah.
Well, but you have to remember that that's a different scenario. It would all crush down, and if you're sitting,
hopefully,
hopefully
it all crushed so quickly that you were dead. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. In a situation like that
looks, and well, let's put it this way. And the human brain won't comprehend. You would hear or see something for a second, and it's over.
Well, and let me make clear: I personally don't want to randomly murder people in submersibles. That
vibration came through really strongly.
Jesus Christ, sorry about
your phone. No, that's okay. But I'm like, your phone is on whatever your
my phone is on the same box. Yeah.
Yes, because I heard and I went.
Problem is wherever I put things down, shit seems to get up and walk away.
I understand.
Like I put a bag down when I first got here, and I haven't seen it since. but I'm still unpacking. But what I'm saying is, I'm not. I feel bad for the loss of human life. It's very sad when people in general die. But there's a whole other level of, but you put yourself in harm's way. You knew it was dangerous. You knew that it was, it's the same thing with bungee jumpers. You know what I mean? It's like somebody who goes bungee jumping, you cannot eliminate 100% of the risk. There is a point there where a line can snap and you die. Same with any type of sport or creative adventure. Astronauts know that they are on the razor's edge of life and death. Because any number of things can go wrong in a space shuttle, on a launch, on a landing.
Sure.
And you're gone.
Well, there is.
So, yeah.
For me, there's a very simple dividing line here. There's one thing I don't know, which I'll allow for. Yeah. I don't know if everybody but the guy in charge of it, if everybody but that person, if he lied to them, which I don't know that there's any way we'll ever know. So I will. No,
but but listen, if the waiver mentions death in the first 3 pages,
okay, but that's no. You got to listen to all what I'm saying. There's a difference. Let's say for some reason you were going to offer the chance to go down and view the Titanic on a submersible. Okay.
Okay.
And they say, let's assume it's something you'd want to do. So we're putting you in this scenario.
I was going to say, because I'd have no interest.
I would never go into any of these things, no matter what you. No, I don't care if it's built if it has 7 feet of armor. I'm not getting it. I don't care. So you want to do this thing. You're offered the chance, and you have to sign a waiver. Now, would you not say, can you tell me the last time this thing was inspected? When were the last safety? Wouldn't you think to ask that question?
Yeah, unless you're the type of person that thinks that your money protects you, and that everybody you.
Yes,
this is the whole.
Invulnerable through wealth. You don't have any fear.
There's the invulnerability through wealth. That's an element, but there's also the element of you expect machinery to just work because someone tells you it does.
Okay, so here's the dividing line for me.
Yes,
if they were lied to about the safety, then the only person who I think earned what they got was the guy in charge.
Look, listen. At the end of the day, they're all dead.
Well, I know, but you say you always regret the loss of human life. I do not.
Yeah.
Because my line is, if they were lied to, then it is regretful that everybody but that guy died. And the kid, no matter what, because it sounds like the kid got guilted into it or whatever. That's terrible. That's horrible. I can't even imagine how horrible that kid's family must, and how much they must hate his father now. I would hate, if it was the opposite and it was me, the whoever left behind, I would hate that person with such a passion that I don't think I would ever get past it. Ever. But outside of that, if they just, as you say, assumed that everything was fine, I don't regret. I don't care that they're dead. I'm sorry, I don't care. I don't care about them. If they were lied to, then I do feel bad. But I don't think that was the case.
If you do things like this, there are always the possibilities of death. There's just
there is, but there's a difference if you believe that you're doing it as safely as possible. Then, it's like surgery.
But even safely.
Okay, but here's a scenario. Your wife's going into surgery. Your wife's going into surgery.
Know there's always a percentage of chance things go horribly wrong.
But your wife's going to go into surgery. You meet with the doctor. You get these videos. I mean, your wife, my wife both have surgery. You get this.
You're gonna ask a million questions.
Right.
You better.
And if you don't see any certificates, if this person doesn't, if you say to them, "Have you ever done this before?" and they're like,
"Yeah, have you done this
on the computer a couple times?
When's the last time you did it?
Yeah."
What
you
are
don't
the
get
dangers?
good answers?
What's the survivability?
Are you gonna allow her to go into that operating theater if you don't get the right answers?
No, and this is the whole.
That's what I'm saying. That's the difference. Of course, there's always a chance. We know that.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't allow for something stupid. Well, most people wouldn't, unless they're, again, on rich brain. But most logical people.
On rich brain.
Well, I don't know what else you call it. It's like you said. There's this thing where you just assume that everything's going to go your way because it always has. So if they were lied to, that's a different thing than if they went in and didn't bother to check because they'd cruise through life and they just assumed it would work and whatever. I'm paying a lot of money.
Well, and the thing is, it had the other part of this is it had worked before many times, and they had talked to other people who had done it.
Again, that's not enough for me. I guess maybe I'm an idiot because I would be checking these things. I would say, wow, that's great that, like anything else. Oh, okay, the other 100 people were fine. When was the last time this thing was looked at? When was the last time? Because we're going to where the ocean is...
You're also a technical person.
I don't know that you need to be technical for this.
I think that there's a difference. I think if you're somebody who doesn't think about the technology, then you're just like, make it work. You know, this is the whole. I mean, were these finance guys? Like, who were these guys that went on this thing? Because because you know, I can't tell you. Listen, I can't tell you how many times when my father was alive, his whole tack to technology was make it work. You know, and you're like, dude, you have to understand. And he's like, nah, I don't want to understand. Make it work. You know, and that's the thing is that, you know, these people show up and they go, does the sub work? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, good. And that's it.
That's a good question. I'm trying. Here we go. Billionaire Explorer is one of them. So there you go. Billionaire father and son duo, wealthy explorer. This is the one where you sit there and go, how? Diver with decades of... Oh, well, diver. That doesn't mean they knew anything about submersibles. And the founder of the... Well, that's the guy who is responsible. So...
You know, and let me take this one step over, by the way.
Sure.
What is this obsession with the Titanic?
My wife said the same fucking thing. Because who cares?
You know,
my mother too, I think, said, "Who cares
honestly,
anymore?"
Its sister ships have a more interesting story. So the Titanic is one of 3 that they made, right? I can't remember off the top of my head what the third one is, but the other one was the Britannia. And do you know what became of the Britannia?
I think I knew it one time, but now I don't remember.
It was a hospital ship. It became a hospital ship in World War II, and it was sunk by the Nazis.
Oh yeah, remember the Britannia?
Yeah.
Wasn't that okay? I knew it from
something.
Well,
there's a lot of remembers. Remember the Lusitania?
No, but I knew the name from.
But
that's
I
what
mean,
I know it from.
That's far more interesting a story. I mean, the thing with the Titanic is, I think this is like the Mona Lisa. It has just become a pop icon, a pop reference. You know what I mean? And then people made movies and they made love stories and they, you know. But here's the thing, like it. Not everybody died. Like, it's not like everybody died. There's plenty of people that got off the boat. Yeah. Plenty of people got off the boat. I mean, it was a calamity. It was terrible. But there's a lot of sunken ships out there. Many far worse. So
the Bermuda Triangle is far more interesting than the Titanic to me.
I never understood the obsession with the Titanic. I do think this is a Mona Lisa thing where people have just become obsessed with this idea because it's you know, like you said, there was a movie and there's, you know, it's that type of thing. Oh, the love story. The romance.
Yeah.
Sure. So I have no interest in that fucking ship. I don't understand why people feel the need to keep going down and looking at it. I don't know either. Of all the, I mean, I guess going down to the bottom of the ocean to see the Titanic is so low on my list of things. I'd have to. I honestly, if you took me down to the bottom of the ocean, I would much rather go down there just to see the wildlife. There's a really good, what do you call it? Who's the guy?
Documentary? James Cameron.
Yeah, no, not James Cameron. God, what movies did that guy did? He did the fucking movie with Hugh Jackman on the. No, he's
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, he did that movie with Hugh Jackman. That
Aronofsky?
Traveling Through Time. Aronofsky.
Okay.
Aronofsky did a series of documentaries. The first series he did was with Will Smith, and in one of them they take Will Smith underwater in a submersible, right? And it was really interesting, like the way that basically like his red shirt turned. I think it turned to gray at one point because as they went down, the light slowly ran out. So, like, you know, it's like the layers of light color that you lose, and then eventually his red shirt looked like blue and gray. And then when they get down to the bottom, they turn these lights on.
Oh, yeah, because the ocean filters out the spectrums of light.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then when they got down there, the wildlife that they saw, you know, like, I would much rather go to the bottom of the ocean to see the wildlife that might be there. Especially the stuff that responds to, to the infrared spectrum. Is that what it is? Where they turn on like the black lights and everything like lights up in a weird.
Yeah, there's infrared and there's some of the thermal stuff and
yeah. But like there's scientifically and zoologically, there's so much interesting shit down there. I don't want to go see the remains of a ship that we built that broke and fell down to the bottom of the ocean. You know, I have no interest. I have more interest in the wildlife that's there.
This is. I was thinking about the headset, the Apple headset thing, and because people are like, well, what's the point? What's the point? It's like, and and as dumb as that thing is, this is something where I'm like, someday you won't, when it becomes immersive enough, you won't have to have people go down there. You'll be able to send, these unmanned things.
But they already do. They've sent hundreds of those things down.
But I understand where people say the pictures don't really. Yeah, I understand that. What they want is a truly immersive experience. I understand that.
I want the opportunity to nearly be killed by the pressure of the ocean.
Well, okay, so
listen,
if you had a headset though, and somebody came to you and said, "Hey, would you like to see the submersible footage that we sent down showing the whole Titanic?" I'd watch it once. I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds interesting."
Listen,
sure, why not?
If you came to me and said, "Hey, I have video of going to all the museums in the world, and you can speed it up, slow it down, and it's like HD or whatever at that point, 8K, 12K, 24, who gives a shit, but you can see these paintings, you can see these museums," I would totally do that. It doesn't replace the fact that I want to go there, but when you see paintings in a museum, especially on a high definition system that allows you to kind of hopefully look at it from like angles and up and down. I mean, really what I'm looking for is like a real life virtual, Louvre online that you can walk through. That's my thing. But you know what? Let's talk about the fucking Apple goggles thing, because I don't understand, other than a further attempt to kind of remove people from reality, what are the point of those things? Like, who is that for?
Well, okay, so let's start with patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare. If you'd like to support the show, the code Ozone will get you 2 months free on Libsyn. You can go to the show page, and there'll be an Amazon author link for Lando. It looks like a book, and there's a skull that will take you to my Linktree that shows you all my stuff. The Apple headset is essentially what most people think, is that this is a very similar to the Apple Watch. This is something where Apple is trying to get an idea of what people want to do with it, because it's priced out of almost every normal person's range.
Oh, yeah. It's expensive. And, it's like, hey, you can do all the things you do on your phone, but you can do them now in front of you.
Well, this is...
I'm trying to understand.
Here's the end goal.
Yeah.
This is the end goal. The end goal is that you have a pair of your glasses like you do today that you put on, and that type of interface is in there for you to use.
And that's some fine print, by the way, that I was fucking pissed about. Not that I would get these, but if you need a prescription, you have to get these. You have to get prescription
special lenses. Oh yeah,
special
of course.
from a company they work with.
Yes. Well, look.
Like, and it ups your price. I think like another like $300-400. So if you need glasses, you're paying like almost $800-900.
Well, yeah, but anybody who's paying $3,500 doesn't care if it's $4,000. They don't care if it's $6,000. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's how much? It's $3,500.
$3,500 for the base model, and that assumes nothing else. Which of course there's going to be other stuff. Yeah, no. This is what I'm saying is this is not meant in any way to be a consumer product. It was announced at a developer conference. It's intended for developers and early super Apple fan adopters, and I don't even think that many of them, to pick up so that Apple can start to figure out what this product is, which you have to understand. Makes
a little more sense now.
They've been working on this for probably about 10 years, probably more, and to the tune of billions. Which is nothing to add.
Yeah,
but.
And the thing is, like, having read a lot of sci-fi and having looked, if their end goal is to miniaturize this into, like, sunglasses, I mean, that's half of William Gibson's books right there. If they want to miniaturize this into sunglasses, but like, who's gonna wear that giant fucking unit?
Oh, developers! It will sell out. I'll tell you right now. They will sell as many as they make. Now they're not going to make a lot because they know. There's a few things to understand about this.
Okay.
And I'm going to say it is 45% marketing, 45% R&D, and 10%. Wait, does that leave 10? Yes, it does. And 10% a rare case where Apple does not have a solid vision for the device. Now, that last 10% to me is the most interesting one because there have been numerous stories over the years about this headset, as well as the Apple Car, whatever that's going to be. It's probably not actually. Well, it's probably not going to be a car. That's people keep calling it that. What a lot of people actually believe they're doing is they're trying to build, because nobody else has done a really good job, a good in-car entertainment system for when self-driving cars get to where they need to be. So that's a long, long bet. You're never going to see a car with an Apple on it, or at least by the time you do, cars will be somehow different. So
would be interesting to me is if rather than do a car, they did some kind of basically short distance. It's the same way that, you know how like everyone's driving scooters in cities now, and everyone's riding bikes, and everyone's got the, you know, everyone's trying to find a more commuter easy way than basically cars and shit like that. It'd be interesting for Apple to tackle that and to create some kind of like smaller method of travel that logs into their ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Well, like, and that could be what it is. We really don't know because, again...
Yeah. But frankly, yeah, I don't give a shit about the vehicle thing. I mean, like, if that comes down the road, that's cool. But the goggles, yeah...
it makes no sense that it would actually be a car. So we'll see what that actually is.
Yeah.
So, back to the headset. There have been a lot of stories about the fact that there was a lot of internal turbulence around this product in almost every respect. And finally, where they got to was, okay, this thing has to come out because we have to figure out what it's actually going to do. Because what they're doing is an interesting... They're trying to have it both ways. And I think that I shouldn't say have it both ways. There's an AR, VR aspect to it, where there's a way that it can be isolating, and there's a way that it can be, quote unquote, external. I mean, it's laughable. You're still wearing a giant headset, but still, it allows...
Yeah, but you have the whole, what do you call that?
The dial.
The reality where you alter
the
reality,
dial basically tunes in the outside or tunes it out, which is a really interesting idea. That's a really interesting idea.
I know. What is that called, though, where they have the whole thing? It's just like the Pokemon game where they use the screen to affect reality.
Oh, that's AR. That's all. That's
augmented reality.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is they want to have both versions. And I think the idea is to see what the adoption is, because there are people
features that okay, I would not pay for this, right? But if someone came and handed me one, right, and they were like, "What would you do with this?" Right? Things that are interesting to me. I'd be fascinated what watching TV on this thing is like, especially on like a plane, because you know what? There is no environment I want to get myself
from more
than a plane, right? So like I can understand that in an environment like that, but the thing is, where I like the idea of doing that, but it's the whole I'm pulling out a whole fucking headset, you know what I mean? Like whereas at home, you know, watching TV for me is a social thing. I watch it with friends, I watch it with family, you know what I mean? Like it's like that aspect. I feel like us all sitting around wearing goggles, we alienate each other. You know what I mean? And like playing video games with friends. You know what? That's fine. If I'm playing video games with friends online, a headset system might be cool to be able to play games and have you right there, and you know, it's things like that. But I see this device as trying to take territory away from other areas that didn't need it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, yes. So that's
and they're
that's
like your apps will float there in front of you, and I'm like, I know, but did I need them to?
Well, okay, this is what I'm getting at. Is there are interesting markets for this that I don't think this is ever going to be in this form. Will this ever be a broad consumer device? No. Period.
What you said about this evolving, this being them basically trying to evolve into this other thing, I totally agree. That's a great observation because I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think when it becomes the AR glasses, that's what everybody what everybody really wants.
They want non-dorky glasses. That's what they want. No, because that was the problem with Google Glass. Google Glass looked like Google Glass.
Well, even that, I don't think that was even the problem with Google Glass. The problem is it really just didn't do enough of what people wanted.
Didn't do enough, yeah. But people want, they basically want high-powered, cool-looking glasses.
The mass market application is AR spectacles. Glasses that you put on that look normal or normal enough. Maybe they have thick, arms. That's probably because they're going to have batteries and stuff. Was it the Oakley Thump? Remember the Oakley Thump?
Yeah.
That's
but if they could get high computing power into something the size of the Oakley Thump,
yes, right.
I think that would be the sweet spot.
The mass market end point. That's what will be the thing that sells to everybody. But there are, for example, the Microsoft HoloLens, which is essentially this, except more limited. Honestly, it's a more limited version, has a lot of adoption in certain specific use cases. And so I think this will become something where there's going to be essentially like there is with their laptops and phones, a pro model. And that pro model to me would probably be something where when you bought the Vision Pro package, bundle, whatever, you would have both the spectacles, which would probably just be AR because it doesn't make any sense for them to be VR. So those would be AR only. So in that magical box that you'll pay probably $3,000 or $4,000 for, but if you're getting all this stuff and it works, you're getting essentially a set of spectacles and a headset, that price isn't as ridiculous, but it'd probably be closer to $2,000. Let's say $2,000. $2,000, you get the headset, something similar to what we have now or what you're seeing now, where if you want to watch a movie late at night, your family's asleep, you pop this thing on, you have a giant 100-foot IMAX screen with surround sound that you just sit there and watch it. Because I agree, I watch most of my stuff with my wife too, but when she's in bed or, if she's working on something in the other room and I don't want her to hear a huge thumping noise as the subwoofer shakes the house, then I put this thing on and she does her work and I'm watching something. So that's fine. But really the spectacles is where everybody wants it to end up. And that's what I think, you're talking 5-10 years from now. This is a 5 to 10 year product. The Apple Watch, when it started, Apple's original plan for that was it was going to be a luxury fashion device. And nobody wanted it. It was seen as a joke.
And now I see Apple Watches on the wrist of fucking everybody.
And that's because what they noticed was people love the fitness angle. And so they moved the device and they made it, now it's about health. We want you to fill those rings. We're going to help you with Apple Fitness. All that stuff was a result of Apple's evaluation of the data based on what people were actually using it for. Because as many people have pointed out, we've talked about it too, even though Apple says we're all about privacy and security, that's because they're keeping all your info. So they're analyzing everything you do with their watch. And that's product research. And this is going to be the same thing. They're going to get this in the hands. They've already the dev kits are out there. People can develop for it right now, developers. So they're going to see what developers put the effort into, because the developer is only going to develop something if they think they can make money for it. There's no reason for them to make a product that they think no one will use.
Yeah, if it's vaporware, no one's going to bother.
Right. They're going to start looking at what users do with their products because they get the same telemetry and metrics and all that stuff. They find out. They get consumer feedback. Probably they're going to send out surveys. Some of them will just adapt their thing. Like if you're using pCalc or something like that, it's a calculator. You're not going to need that thing to have 3D buttons. So there's going to be the simple stuff that will get moved over easily. But there's going to be people who will make actual experiences, things that, so some of these apps that are, they're talking about probably maybe not the next iPhone, but maybe the one after, but it probably will be in the next iPhone. That thing will be able to capture video that will then become immersive inside the helmet. Yes. You'll have it.
Yeah, I wonder how it's going to handle the not giving you motion sickness.
Well, the people who've tried it, which has been a limited amount, have said that they haven't experienced it, or at least nothing like the other one, because one of the things that they're doing, and this is part of the expense, is it's a high frame rate with high fidelity, because that's really where the motion sickness comes from. It's that your brain can tell that as you move, the screen cannot refresh fast enough. and that's what throws your brain into disarray.
You know,
However,
I wonder if this is going to be the technology that cancels us out, like us as in you and I as an older generation. That like 20 years from now, everyone's going to be like, it's like what do you call it? Snow crash on the street. Everyone's going to be on the virtual street, and we're going to be like, oh, fuck those goggles. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, it's because you're too old, man. You know, like, it's going to be that kind of...
fine with me. I don't like people anyway, so it's fine with me. Whatever isolates me more, I'm happy about it. I don't care. So it ain't going to cancel me out. It's going to make me feel like dancing in the street.
You'll just put dog heads on everybody.
Right. Yeah. Now, if I could go around and barely ever see anybody, I'd be thrilled.
See, that's one thing I'd be interesting is if you had this technology where you could start changing the way everybody looks and having the system remember it.
Oh,
so like,
of course you will.
So like Bob from work. Every time you see Bob from work, Bob has a fish head, and whatever clothes he's wearing.
That's what it's going to be. Yeah. No, it will be that way. It's going to be that way. Oh no! Look. This is going to be. I remember when Dennis Miller years and years ago did a bit about how when you can put on a headset and have sex with like Elle McPherson, that's the new crack. That's what this is. Yeah,
this is the whole. If you can deep fake somebody on your like, let's say you're in one of these hateful marriages, you can deep fake some actress that you find really hot on your wife in real time.
Yes,
and she vice versa with you. It's like, oh
do
yeah.
Do you think that they won't have synchronized sex toys? You'll never have to touch your wife again if you hate her.
We're getting to a whole realm of disconnection.
Oh yeah. Well, and by the way, that away from the jokiness porn angle of it, there is this thing where once this becomes something affordable, if you think about most people, obviously you're going to have some money for it, but think about this scenario. You just get out of college, you get your first apartment, it's probably the size of a shoebox.
And that's something you want to be there for.
You're not going to put an 80-inch television into an apartment that has one wall that's not even big enough for it.
No,
Whereas put this thing on.
Did get the sense of this thing that it was made for apartment dwellers. Does that seem weird?
Well, apartment dwellers, but there's also, what about people with accessibility problems? What about people who aren't mobile?
That's what I mean. But like people who are in a limited space, be it physical, or through some handicap. Yes.
Yeah.
There is that sense of, but the whole, oh man, what was it? The whole
the thing they showed with the guy at his kid's party with it on, recording it. That is ridiculous.
Gargoyles, man. Gargoyles.
I did think of that. Because there's a lot of that kind of stuff around now.
It's very snow crashy.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of that already almost in place where you have that. But yes, so some of it is nonsensically stupid what they showed. But it's also not going, and there's people who very much want spatial computing because this thing will be able to sense your hands. You won't have to put your hands up like, in Lawnmower Man and shit where you have your hands up or Minority Report. It will be able to use eye tracking along with your hands to be able to let you sit there, and you could actually type on your legs. You could, click on a keyboard, bring it up, and you'd be able to type on your legs, and it would be able to set like stuff like that.
Chris, I'm a terrible touch typer.
Well, but
it'll be fascinating if in the future, right?
Yeah.
People start tattooing brand logos on their face just so other people can't put them online. Because remember, there's that whole thing you can't you can't have a brand logo in your film unless you pay for it.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So wouldn't it be funny if you had like a Nike tattoo on your face just so that nobody could steal it?
There's a whole 30 Rock episode where there's a reality show crew in the studio.
Yeah.
And the people who work there, the two main characters, they don't want them to be able to use any of the footage. So they keep doing things that intentionally disrupt their ability to use it. So at one point, one of them is wearing a hockey mask with a bunch of logos. And he's like, I can't use that. You have logos. He's like, I don't care. Now you can't use my footage. Then they start singing Billy Joel songs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that they can't use it. So they're yelling at each other using the Billy Joel theme. And the guy's like, I can't use it. He's like, I don't care. And he's singing it like whatever that song is. And so that's what you're talking about is you'd be able to disrupt it that way. Sure.
Oh, yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But so the headset thing, it's the biggest stupidity of it is that people think that this is something that's meant for people to buy, and it really isn't. I mean, obviously, if you're one
No,
of these Ocean
listen,
Gate type people with no
I
care
did
about
not
money.
realize that it was released in for dev, essentially.
Well, you could buy it.
Because I saw the video for it, and the video felt the Apple video they made for it did feel a little bit kind of like they were walking the fence. So they were like, "Hey, this is for devs, but this is also for people who
they showed aspirational uses. That's the idea. I think that's what the idea was. But you can't even buy it. It's not even going to be out for a year. So who cares? That's what I'm saying.
You know what? I wonder if it'll come out.
Oh no, it'll come out. It will come out, but it'll be something like there's only going to be like maybe 100,000 of them, and they'll be sold out instantaneously. So you'll never see it. I mean, you might go into an Apple store and
you'll
You'll
see it in a city. Somebody will walking down the street wearing it.
I sure as hell wouldn't go around in a city wearing it because somebody will rip it off your head and sell it on eBay. Are you kidding? No, you will never see these things. No, no way. Even stripping it for parts, you'd get money. No, you will likely not see these in a normal way. I'm going to say 3 years. 3 years from now, unless because what will precipitate that is a price cut. That's what it'll do. That's how you'll
much like travel to the Titanic. This is something that I have no need for.
I'm interested to see where it goes.
I'm curious where it goes. Listen, I'm always curious where the technology evolves to it's like early internet wasn't meant for people like you and I.
Right.
That was military.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's also a lot of things we don't, for example, a lot of people have said those headsets are heavy. That's why that thing has a 2-hour limit, because they don't want you wearing it, even though they keep saying you can use it all day.
Hold on. It has a 2-hour limit.
Well, the battery pack does. Otherwise you have to plug it in.
Yeah, got it.
But I really will be interested to see if anybody wants to wear it for more than 2 hours, because there is this thing they were talking about on one of the shows I listened to.
Start getting really buff necks?
No, not that. But it's got that front screen that shows the googly eyes, which is horrifying. I don't. That is bizarre that anybody thought that was a good idea. I suspect that will go away. I don't think that it will either have a light or an indicator, but there is no chance in hell that I believe that thing will stay that way, because it's freaky.
It'll have features,
Well, but what somebody said was the problem that what they should have done and may end up doing is what they should have is a set of cameras that are where your eyes are going to sit in the headset, because one thing that they've noticed is the thing that tracks the outside, the AR element, what allows the outside world in. What they've found with headsets now is if that thing is even and actually where they found this is in the people who make night vision goggles, because that's a similar thing. If that point of sight is not lined up with your eyes, if it's off by just a little bit, and you wear it for a while and take it off, you enter this very disoriented state, because your brain will adapt to it being off center.
This is the upside down glasses.
Kind of, but instead of, it's not motion sickness per se, but it is a disorientation.
No, they to show how the brain adapts to vision alterations, they took a bunch of people and they made them wear glasses that were upside down. They had to do it for a week, right? Pretty sure it was a week. It might have been 2 weeks. And they had to wear the glasses. And in the beginning, they had a lot of trouble doing anything because everything was upside down, right? After a week of wearing the glasses, their brain oddly adapted. And suddenly, they were fine. They did everything normal. They just kept going. When they took the glasses off, it was like everything was upside down. And honestly, for me, that would be the worst part of that. Is having taken those glasses off, hoping that there'd be some normality, and realizing that you'd basically just in some way, you'd put the glasses back on for another week till your brain adapts. But that's the thing, we adapt. Right. And that's what you're talking about. This effect, you adjust to the altered angle, and then when you take them off, your vision is expecting that altered angle.
Right. So that's where the person was saying what they should do is rip that stupid Google eyes thing off, or goggly eyes, and they should put cameras that line up with the eyes, and that would almost eliminate that problem, because it would be lined up, and then when you took it off, because the fidelity and the frame rate will be close enough that there will be a very minor.
Yeah, you said
dropped out.
You said eliminate, and as you said you went elim, and then it just.
It sounded like the call dropped, and then you came back. So that's good. That's okay. So they said that having the cameras lined up will eliminate or nearly eliminate that problem, because the frame rate and resolution will stop a lot of, when you take it off to go back to reality, it will feel like a very natural transition from the fidelity of the images you see. And with the leveling being correct, you will have a much shorter, you may still have a little bit of that, but it's going to be very brief compared to how it is when they're off center. So I expect that to go away. That I think will change. I think they're going to decide, they're going to say, well, we found that users really didn't seem to enjoy the goggly eyes weirdness that we had on the front. And we've decided that it would be better if we put cameras there with a light indicator to show that, you're dialed in or dialed out, which is fine. That'll be perfectly fine. So we'll see. But yeah, this is not intended for normal people. No normal person should be buying this unless you enjoy breaking a product by seeing what it can't do. Then I guess go for it. But no, this is 3 to 5 years probably from an actual mass market release. This is intended for people to figure out what they want it to be at this point. So I don't know where it'll end up, but this is definitely not intended for any normal person to buy. I'll put it like that. So,
well, good, because I thought they were full of a lot of shit, and now I feel better about the amount of shit they're putting out.
I don't know that they're not. They said a lot of things, but interestingly, almost nobody was even allowed to see it outside of very guided tours. So we'll see what happens when people start getting their hands on it, because there's fans in it to control the heat. Now,
yeah, you know what? That's something to think about.
This is all the little stuff that we'll see what the final hardware looks like. It could also be radically different by next year. There could be several things changed about this by next year. That might be why they didn't want anyone to see it. There was a strap that you had to wear that was never shown in any of their videos that goes over the top of your head. That's stabilizing. Only the people that were there actually saw that. So there's all this little stuff where it's like, okay, let's see. Does that battery pack heat up? Because you're not going to want it in your pocket if it's heating up. Lots of things. What happens if you accidentally hit that wire and tear it?
Oh, man, I saw a great meme where it was like everybody's headset after the first week, and it's just a big piece of shattered glass.
Yeah, well, there's that too. You know, are you going to want this in a house where there's little kids that will inevitably break it? You're out $3,500. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is we'll see what this looks like when it hits the consumer market, if it ever does in its current form. So the tech is highly interesting and promising. The reality, we don't know that yet. That's a ways off. So
yeah.
Was that your opener? Was that the thing you had as an opener?
Oh no, I had something else to talk about completely.
Oh, okay. Better get to it fast.
Yeah, I know, before everything crashes.
The hotspot's already said, hey, assholes, move along.
Yeah, I know, it did, yeah. So, you know, the other day, it was like fucking weeks ago now, I was talking about how we were watching Doctor Who, and I had this, like, very different vision of Doctor Who as, like, this alien, this superior alien who basically looks at us all as, like, pets. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it was, watching the Martha Jones season of Tenet, it has been very evident that the way that he treats Martha Jones and the way, you know, and then but nowhere it is most evident so far in the 3-part season finale of the Martha Jones season, because number one, Harkness comes back, right? And there's a really weird relationship between Harkness and Tennant. It's very different from Eccleston in Tennant. Eccleston thought of Harkness. He almost treated him like an amusing experiment. You know what I mean? Like oh, he's a funny rascal, whatever. But the Doctor always knew that he had one over on Harkness. Harkness was never beyond the Doctor, right? Whereas when Harkness comes back, Tennant wants nothing to do with him, and he says the whole thing is that Harkness has become something that's wrong. He has now become a fixed point in time. He cannot die. He has become almost something more, I don't know, more interesting than the Time Lords. You know what I mean? And their relationship is very different. They almost begin to treat each other, I want to say equals, but he's closer to being treated like an equal than I think any other human, because he's not human anymore. But then you have the presence of the Master, right? And in the second episode of the 3-part season finale, Harkness, who still has a human approach, said, he's got that perception filter thing on, right? So they think they cannot be seen. And Harkness says, you know what? Why don't I just walk up behind him and put a hole in his head? Right? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That is a fucking solution right there. To just, this is always the problem people have with the Doctor and the Master and the Time Lords, is that you let them start planning, you let them start talking, you really should just put a bullet in their heads, and it's over. It's a problem that, this is the James Bond problem, the supervillains want a monologue. And the Doctor says, no, he's a Time Lord, he's my responsibility, I'm going to save him. Right? So the Doctor has just said to Harkness, no, you're not allowed to kill him. He's my responsibility and I have to save him. And then what goes on to happen is that the Master goes on to basically kill like 1/10 of the population and creates all this horror. Now, I know that the correction will be like, well, yeah, but it was all done in the paradox, and when they fix everything, nobody really remembers what happened, right? But the Doctor still let the Master go on, knowing how dangerous he was, and basically saying, you know what? Whatever the Master might do to the human race is worth not killing him, because he's more important to me, because he's a Time Lord. And that's the way he acts. Like, every time the two of them are on the phone with each other, there's something almost near, like, sexual about their connection to each other. The fact that they're the two last Time Lords. And he keeps saying to them, everything is different now. We don't have to do this. So, yeah, it is really weird to watch with this new perspective on the character. And the fact that nothing seems to, so far, speak against it. Like, if anything, it just keeps getting more and more heavily reinforced. This idea of the superior Time Lord alien who looks at us all as pets. And how the life of another Time Lord is more important, apparently, than 1/10 of the population of the planet. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I wanted to bring it up because it was very out there. I mean, like, Martha's crying about her family, and the Doctor's just like, no, we can't. You can't kill him. Can't kill him. He's like, I have to save him. Can't kill him. And you're like, yeah, but he's the bad guy. Like, so I just wanted to bring it up because if anybody is watching Doctor Who with kind of this idea, this thought experiment, I haven't had it get shot down. Like, everything he does just makes sense. The superior alien treating us like pets. I don't know. Thoughts, feelings?
Well, it's not. I mean, I can't really contest the theory. There have been variations on that theory for a long time. It does make a lot of sense, because one of the things that people kind of forget is that there have been multiple incarnations of the Doctor that have a strong streak of arrogance.
Oh yeah,
and that translates into I'm better. Humans are kind of dumb. I have an affection for them, as you said, like sea monkeys. And
oh yeah, and when they go to the end of the universe, he's like, look at these humans surviving at the end of the universe. He's like, look at them.
Right.
He's like, oh, that human spirit. I'm like, dude, these people are dying.
But you have to remember, if you look at it from his perspective, we are very simple things.
Yeah.
We can't fly into space, really. We don't have any control of time. We only live once.
Yeah.
You know, there's multiple ways in which,
it goes back to that whole we have the hardest time conceiving of something alien. And yet the Doctor is, if you read into it a little bit, it's actually a really good example of an alien.
Yeah.
We keep putting our emotions into it and saying, "Oh, he looks human," and his assistants and everything. You know, everyone does the same thing, but they forget he's an alien. And so it was just fascinating because the way Martha Jones gets treated to Harkness at this point, because Harkness has become something exotic, where he's not quite human anymore. He's the head of Torchwood, and the Doctor starts treating him differently because he's not one of the pets anymore. And it's almost like the whole thing of like what is an ant to a god or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like if you blew an ant up to like 20 times its size, right? If an ant was the same size as a human, suddenly you're paying attention to that ant because they're 10 times stronger than you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it was just a fascinating observation. I figured I would bring, just kind of reinforcing my theory of the alien.
Yeah. I mean, that's why one of the things they talked about was when Tennant ran into Sarah Jane Smith, and it was one of the first times you saw the impact of how she was just kind of ditched.
Yeah. She's like, you just left me.
Right. So that's, and honestly, there's also the thing, and they've never really, or at least I can't remember if they have. I've never seen an episode where they really, I wish they had done the thing that I had the theory about, which I was completely wrong about, when they were doing all the stuff with Eccleston and the Bad Wolf thing, where I said, let it be that that one of these doctors we think is the Doctor and it's the Master. And then what you find out is, people just defer to what the Doctor says to do as if he knows.
They tried that on a very light scale, because when you meet the Master in the beginning of the 3-parter, he's some old guy who calls himself the Professor.
Yeah, but they've never done it the full. They haven't gone full.
You're going for like a full season where people are like, "Oh, he's the Doctor."
Here's how I would do it.
He's not the Doctor.
There would be a whole season where we follow the new incarnation of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Who they.
Oh,
but they never.
Can I add to your idea?
Go ahead.
So, Sherlock Holmes, classic Sherlock Holmes, him and Moriarty go over the waterfall.
Yes.
Right? All right. Wouldn't it be neat if you did a scenario where the Master and the Doctor kind of in a situation where they both go into some kind of, death-defying situation, right? And somebody else walks out. So clearly there's been a what do you call it? A regeneration, right?
Yeah.
And somebody walks out, vaguely dressed like the Doctor, and says, "Master's dead. He died in whatever this thing was, and I managed to regenerate. I'm the Doctor. Let's go." And you just trust that. And
the problem is that immediately people would say it's the Master, because this is because you can't. The way to do it.
Well, how do you do it then?
Well, here's the only way you can do it is you kill off the Doctor and you infer that it is something that is permanent, that the regeneration can't beat it. And this is why it will never happen. Because the best chance they had to do it was with Eccleston. That was the best shot. Doctor Who had been off the air for 20-something years, and now it was back, and people were so excited that it would never have occurred.
And there was no regeneration. That was the other important thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the best shot. They blew that, because I don't think they ever had the stones to do it. The only other way you could do it is have a whole year where the Doctor is gone. A whole season where it's his companions trying to keep it going without him. You know what I mean? Either with another Gallifreyan, or maybe it's the Ronnie somehow comes back, and in the absence of the Doctor, she becomes semi-good for a while, or he, whoever, whatever it ends up being, and works with the companions. And then they find, the Ronnie, the whole season is the Ronnie saying, I've always heard this myth about a way that you can bring back a Gallifreyan even when the regenerations run out. And that's the whole thing, is they're chasing it. End of the season, they find whatever it is. I don't know what you'd call it. Whatever. They find this thing, and they find the Doctor's body, or what they think is the body, because it happens to be where, and I don't think you should see him die. This is something where it's an aftermath episode. Something like that. I mean, there's a way to do it. I'm not I'd have to sketch this whole thing out and build the story.
Honestly, you need a round table and a few people throwing it back and forth.
Yeah. It would be, I would do it as a
This
special.
is what a room of writers is for.
Right. In between the end of a normal season, there's always a special. That special is that the Doctor in the end dies, or is thought to die in something, but you don't actually see it happen. Right? So they find what they believe is the Doctor's body, or some residue of him. Gallifreyans, when their regeneration ends, they become a block of crystalline energy. And if you can reverse the polarization of the energy just right with the key of regeneration, or the key of life, the Gallifreyan's essence can be restored. But as a result, he's going to be a little off for a while because he was dead. So you can't just expect to come back from death and go right back. So it's going to take a while for his memories and personality to come back. So he's going to be a little weird for a while. And the whole season is that they think they've brought the Doctor back, and he's a little bit wonky, but he actually seems to be better than they expected, because the Master has cheated death, quote unquote death, enough times that what you find out is exactly what you said, that the Doctor in this special had died because he found out that the Master had finally, found a doomsday weapon that whatevered. And he initiated a pulse neutronic explosion, sacrificing his life to stop the Master, and they both became crystal cubes, except his fell through a hole in the floor, so the one that they found was the Master. They bring him back, and the Master starts doing things, and they seem a little odd to the companions, but they understand that he's come back from death, so he might be a little off. And this,
remember, when the Doctor was the Professor, he came off very much like the Doctor.
Yes, he's done it a couple times. When the Sixth Doctor came in, he was choking out his companion in the first episode he was in. He was a nut. So all this has been done before. But the thing you do with it is you underline the fact that people just assume that the Doctor knows what he's doing. And this should be a way to reset the Doctor. Because honestly, he's too powerful now. He's too trustworthy. You'd never doubt that he's going to win. So what you do is you have to punch at that a little bit and say, okay, what if something happened where the Doctor had to re-earn the trust of these pets? What happened if the pets start biting back a little bit? And he has to reckon with the fact that he isn't a god on Earth, and that they don't trust. They did it a little bit with Torchwood as well, where they were kind of messing around with, Britain was setting up the thing that they didn't want to trust. But again, they never went anywhere with it. They didn't actually do enough with it.
Yeah, and the reality is that, he is a bit not trustworthy because, he's an alien. That's the whole idea.
Even if he's trustworthy, it has become the point that everybody just assumes that what he's doing is in the best interests of the planet. And we don't really know that, except that has historically been the case. What happens when that faith is undermined? Not destroyed. Yeah. Because once it's revealed that it was the Master, and they bring him back, it's not like they're going to instantly distrust everything, but it will be a thing where, what if the companion's job is to make sure the Doctor is doing what's right for Earth, or is actually operating on good intelligence? Have a companion, much like Romana was, because that was one of the best companions, because she was another Time Lord. So when the Fourth Doctor was spouting bullshit at times, she'd be like, stop talking shit.
That was River's song.
Same thing, right?
The Doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
What if it was that as a companion, where the Doctor had to reckon with the fact that we're not pets? It would be an interesting thing to do, because
honestly, if you go through the list of people who were not pets to the Doctor, it's not a long list.
No, it's like 4 people, maybe.
It's like the Rani,
and how many are human?
The Master,
Yeah. Any humans in there?
Maybe River Song, but she's not technically human either.
Right.
She was a time. She had essentially become a kind of Time Lord.
Yeah.
And maybe Harkness,
who again doesn't classify as a pure
not human anymore, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I guess
that's
we
the
make
way
great
to do
pets.
It. That's the way. Yeah. Yeah, we do. But that's what I would do. But they won't have the stones for that.
No, especially now the direction they've gone too. I mean.
Right. And yeah, it's a shame.
But
There's
here's the other
lots
thing
of
too.
narrative interest.
You know what? You can sway a regeneration to some extent. It's kind of amazing that the Master hasn't come back as the Doctor.
Well, this is kind of what I'm
picked one of his faces and been like, you know what? I'm coming back as the 11th Doctor.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is this would be an interesting thing to do?
Yeah.
But again, you'd have to commit to it because, of course, the first thing, if you don't set it up right to begin with, and if you don't commit to it for a long period of time, you have to Yeah, it can't be 3 episodes and it's over with.
Yeah, you got to commit and then ignore it. Don't drop hints. Just ignore it for a while. Let them just have adventures.
That's why I think you need a whole season without the Doctor at all, where the idea is they're getting the thing to bring the Doctor back. And then, because you will have missed that character, and to me, it would be the Ronnie, would be the one.
The problem is you'd need some pretty powerful assistants. You need some assistants that were not just, you're not gonna do like Amelia Pond. You're gonna need more River Song.
And well, that's why I'm saying the Ronnie is the perfect choice, because you still have another Time Lord in the mix. So there is the Doctor Who-esque character.
And I think the idea would be the fact that she wants the TARDIS, but she can't get it because the assistants have it, and they've.
And even that could be factored in, because the Ronnie was a gray character. She was neither good nor bad. She was self-serving. Yeah. So even that, your idea about she wants the TARDIS, okay, fine. So that's why she knew right away that they had the wrong cube, but she doesn't fucking care. When they at the end, that's the thing, because she's So when and then that would be the Master. She would actually have stolen the Master's TARDIS, not the Doctor's. And so the Doctor says we have to find the Ronnie in that next season. And then when when they catch up to her, she says, "Oh, I see you found me." And he's like, "Of course I did." And then they're like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Well, that's the Master." And they're like, "Wait a minute. How, you didn't know that was the Master's?" "Oh, I knew. I just needed to get you guys occupied with something so I could take this. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me if Earth's a fucking cinder or a paradise. I don't care about you." Like, that would be the best thing, is all this setup where the humans feel all dejected and betrayed, and she's like, "I don't care." It's like the shit in The Fugitive. "I didn't kill my wife. I don't care." Like that. Yeah. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. If they ever get bored and they have the stones, yes, they might try.
That would be the way to do it. That's what I would say. Yeah. So it would be interesting.
We're about an hour into this very unstable connection.
Yeah.
You wanna try for one of yours?
I could do. It can be quick. Yeah, it can be fast, because
it doesn't have to be quick. We could try. You can always go.
No,
down
but it won't.
burning,
It won't be. I don't think it's gonna. It won't be an hour or anything like that. This is gonna be shorter, because there's not much to say about the sequel. So I watched a pair of movies. I would direct people. I mentioned this because I did a short review on it, and I put a link to the article in that short review. I'll put a link as well to the article in my short review for the sequel. Polygon put a list out of the Black Action Star Pantheon, which I was like, ooh, now this is an interesting list that I want to read. And about half of the movies I'd already seen. So there was the obvious stuff, like Pam Grier was on there and Jim Brown and all, and a lot of the movies I'd already seen. Or I shouldn't say a lot. About half of them I've seen. I actually have a really good list now to go through. But there was one on there where they mentioned that it was Jim Brown, Jim Kelly, and Fred Williamson in one movie together. And the description of the movie was that a white supremacist has come up with a formula to kill only black people, and these three men have to stop him. And I went, holy shit, I must see this immediately. And it's called 3 the Hard Way. That's the name of the movie. God. 3 the Hard Way. It's a
I'm not gonna look it up, because I don't want to totally shake my connection.
that might.
3 the Hard Way. Okay.
3 the Hard Way. And literally they say it in the movie, and what they're referring to is 3 cities, which is Detroit, Chicago, and I think it's LA, which is the sites that the supremacists are gonna poison to make sure it works at first, to wipe out all the black population. And it only affects black people. So white people drink it, they're fine. Even though there's a point where one of the characters is like, well, I ain't drinking the water because I don't trust that, which I thought was very funny, but they never really go anywhere with that. But essentially, what happens is there's this compound, and we don't know this at first, but there's a guy who escapes from a compound, and all you see is that he has to hide in this horrible scene in like a barn where there's just all these dead black men and women that are just piled up. And he has to hide among them, and he gets shot on the way out, but he manages to escape. And we don't know what it is at first. He escapes, and he manages to get into a hospital. And in the hospital, he calls Jim Brown. And Jim Brown shows up, and this is a guy that Jim Brown's known for a long time. And he's like, what happened to you? And the guy's basically dying and says they figured out a way to kill us all. And then he dies, but he doesn't explain really anything past that. So Jim Brown, who is playing, the character's name is Jimmy, he says, okay, I've got to find out what this is. And he basically he goes to Chicago, which is where Fred Williamson is. And man, these characters are awesome. Jim Brown essentially plays a Shaft type character. Now, he's not a cop, but basically Jim Brown was a football player, big fucking guy. I mean, all these guys are big fucking guys, except Jim Kelly, who's essentially the black equivalent of Bruce Lee, and actually was in Enter the Dragon. So he is a legit martial artist. So Jim Brown is this big, buff guy with a huge fucking magnum, and he goes to Chicago and finds Fred Williamson, whose character name is Jagger, and Jagger is the classic, the classic ladies' man. He's got 3 women all the time, the shirt open all the way to his navel because it's the fucking 70s, like swinging cat, man. And like Jim Brown jumps him in his apartment, and they're like fighting and all this shit. And he's basically like, oh, it's me. I just wanted to make sure you still have your reflexes. Like stupid scene and Jagger's like, man, you could have done that without me breaking half of my apartment. And he's like, well, look, something's going on. I don't remember what the character's name is. I'll call him Larry. Larry was shot, and he told me there's something going on, and I got to get to the bottom of it. So you got to help me. And Jagger's like, man, this don't have nothing to do with me. I don't know. Larry was a good guy, but this ain't my shit, man. You're in a completely different city. Because I think, Jimmy is, I think, in New York. And, no, I'm sorry. No, Jimmy is in LA. Jagger is in Chicago. So he's like, I'm here. I'm in a completely different city than you, man. I don't know what he's talking about, but I don't think it has anything to do with me. But here, I'll walk you back to the train. As he's walking him back to the train, some of the white supremacists jump them, start shooting at him. There's this huge gunfight in like an amusement park with shit blowing up all over the place. And at the end of it, then Jimmy says, all right, now are you involved? And like Jagger's like, yeah, now I'm involved. Let's go get him. He's like, there's one other guy I think we got to get. Then we cut to New York. And in New York, Jim Kelly is playing a guy whose name is Mr. Keys. His first name is Mr. And they explain it, which is fucking beautiful. So they're planting, the white supremacists are for some reason, I guess it's because he's the badassest martial artist in all of New York or something, whatever, he's known. So they're planting coke in his car. So he's going to get into his car, and a cop walks up to him and says, hey, let me see your license. And he gives him the license. He says, your first name's Mr.? Your mom named you Mister? And he says, yeah, it's because she wanted to make sure anybody who talked to me did so with respect. And I was like, fuck me, that's great. I'm like, this is fucking great. Like, I'm so on board with this movie, and I think this is like the halfway point.
That's a huge missed opportunity, I have to say.
It's so good. Anyway, so they try to take him in. He beats the fuck out of a ton of cops, at which point Jagger and Jimmy show up. And they're like, okay, we got to get out of town. So let's get you out of here before more cops show up. But the thing is, the movie, there's no repercussions. It's great. There's no consequences. He just wiped out a whole police squad. And somehow they're just walking around. They've shot up a bunch of people. Nobody cares. The joke is they never reload their guns, ever, even though they're using revolvers. Never reload. Other characters, the enemies, others reload. Jimmy and Jagger never reload. Keys never uses a gun. Except there's one point where Jimmy gives him a gun, but even then he doesn't even use it because his whole thing is he's a martial artist. So it's great because you got two gunfighters and the martial artist. And they basically, the two gunfighters shoot everything. The martial artist kicks the fuck out of everything. It's great. These three together are fucking amazing. So basically, they end up, and a lot of the middle of it is them kind of finding out what's going on, getting the name of the main guy. And they finally end up tracking them to, so then they find out that they have the three targets, which is Detroit, Chicago, and LA, I believe are the three. And that's where Jimmy says the line where he's like, all right, this is how it's got to be. Three the hard way. Each of us goes to a city. So they split up, and each one goes to a city to stop the poisoning at that city. So we get three separate action sequences. I mean, there's car chases, shit's blowing up, people getting shot, karate fucking chop the hell and back. All this kind of stuff is happening. And then they finally all end up converging. And when Keys, who I believe he does Detroit, I want to say, but I don't remember. It's not really important. Wherever Keys goes, he brings one of his dojo guys with him, and they fight off probably 30 guys with machine guns, all karate. No fucking guns. They're dismantling, like breaking the guns in half, beating the fuck out of them with their own guns. It's amazing. It's in like a hydro plant. So it's all this machinery. They're throwing people off fucking scaffolding and shit. It's great. And then the last one is Jimmy tracks down the last one, eliminates that one, which is at some kind of, I think that's at a dam. So somebody gets thrown off a dam, all this kind of stuff. All nice stunt work, great. So then the three of them converge on the compound where the main guy, whose name is, what is that guy's name? His name is, what the hell's the main bad guy's name? No, what is his name? Not Fortero, that's the doctor. Is his name? No, that's not. Whatever the main guy, Feather. Monroe Feather. This character is one of the great villains because they're playing him as the effete, sophisticated Hitler, essentially, where he's got, I mean, they have armbands, but they're like lightning bolts instead of a swastika, but it's essentially, he's a neo-Nazi, but he speaks in this very polite, southern mannered way, like very nice to everybody, low key, no, doesn't yell. There's a part where they take Jim's girlfriend hostage, and he's referring to her as a lady and a woman, even though you know he secretly hates her because she's black. So all through the movie, he keeps that low-key, even tone. One of the guys goes to hit Jim Brown's girlfriend, and he stops him. He says, nope, she's our guest. Don't do anything. Put her in a room, lock the door, but you don't hit her. Like all this shit, throughout most of the movie, he is calm because he believes he's in control. And then when they show up and start blowing up his compound, he loses his fucking mind. Then he's screaming and ranting. It's great. It's such a great way to do the character because all of it is an illusion based on his perceived control of the situation. And as soon as that is broken and the illusion is punctured, he reduces down to a maniac. It's fantastic. And so, they catch up with him. They blow his car up and like he turns into a fireball. They, destroy the entire lab and everything else. And then the very end of the movie is them saying, well, let's not ever do this again, and kind of all laughing and then splitting up. And then the movie just kind of ends. It's fantastic. I cannot highly enough recommend watching the first movie. The first movie is top to bottom. I mean, I wish that we'd gotten 4 or 5 of these types of movies with a good budget and like top end production, because these three guys together are sensational. Like there is a one. I mean, it's from what I've read, they were actually friendly. It all makes sense. It's great. I really cannot recommend it highly enough. If you're into blaxploitation or black action, whatever you want to call it, this is one of the best you're ever going to see, because these three guys fucking rule the screen. So they're great. And the movie utilizes them very well. You often see them together. They show them individually, though, so that they can each have their own action sequences, which are really good. And then they come back together as the fighting force for the end. So they play it perfectly. It's great. So that's the first movie, which is 3 the Hard Way. Then they apparently made a Western that was supposed to be a sequel, which I didn't watch. I don't remember what it's called, but there's one that was originally, they said, well, this is basically the sequel, except we made it into a Western. Let me see what the name is, just in case anybody. I can't find the name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And this is very clearly the movie that inspired Black Dynamite, because in Black Dynamite, the storyline is that a white supremacist, or a group of them, they want to poison the water supply to make black men's penises smaller so that they will lose the power that they have over women, or something like that. It's hysterical. It's a comedy. It's a parody.
It's a Western.
No. Black Dynamite is a blaxploitation.
I've seen Black Dynamite. It's hilarious. I'm saying this movie that you
this movie is not the Western. The sequel they made to this, which I can't remember the name of, was apparently a Western where they got the same guys together again.
Okay.
But Fred Williamson never really liked the fact that was seen as the sequel, so he made essentially the sequel in a movie called One Down, Two to Go. Now, the characters' names are different because I think he couldn't get the rights to basically use the same character names again. But essentially, it's the same crew. It's the same three of them, except now they add Richard Roundtree. So now Chef's in it.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
And I hate to tell you this, but it's not as good. The problem with One Down, Two to Go, which, number one, the premise is not nearly as bonkers. It's about they make a bet on a rigged fight, and they're after their money, which just is automatically such a downgrade in stakes. Like, it's just not as, it's okay, but I kept expecting there to be something else to it, and there never was. It's really just about guys after their money, which isn't a bad premise, but when you're coming from white supremacists that are going to poison every black person and you have to go and destroy them, that's so much better for a group of these type of guys to go after than, oh, they took our money. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not as thrilling.
It can't always be white supremacists, though.
No, I know, but they could have added something to it. Especially because at one point, Joe Spinell, who was in fucking Maniac, was the Maniac of Maniac. He's in like one scene. And I went, oh, no, he's going to be there's going to be something with this. No, it's just he's in one scene. So the other thing is Jim Kelly is barely in it because he gets shot early on and they basically sideline him for the movie. So it really becomes Fred Williamson and Jim Brown. Now, don't get me wrong. Jim Brown and Fred Williamson still do a lot of damage. They're still great to watch, but you keep waiting for Jim Kelly to show back up, and he never really does until the very end. Richard Roundtree is there heavily in the beginning. Then he's missing for a little bit in the middle because they almost kill him. And then he's back at the end. So they basically sub him in for Jim Kelly. And don't get me wrong, Richard Roundtree is great. He's got one of the all-time great voices. So like when he's saying shit, people are listening. Jim Brown's the same way. They give him some great intimidation scenes where like he's whispering at people, but it's so much menace. It's fucking great. That's what I mean about I wish this movie was better and that we had a couple better ones, because it never gets to the level of greatness that Three the Hard Way does. Three the Hard Way is a high bar. Don't get me wrong. But this movie falls well short. Now, it's still fun to watch, but they also edited it really heavily, I think, because they were trying to get more distribution for it. So some of the stuff you would expect, there's some weird editing around sex scenes and stuff where there's really no nudity of any kind. Which, don't get me wrong, you don't have to do that, but when it's obvious you're editing around it, it becomes more pronounced that it was there.
You're trying to get as close to it as you can without actually...
Yeah, well, I think they had it, and they had to take it out. That's what I mean about there's some really weird editing in it. And honestly, the biggest sin is that Jim Kelly is missing for 75% of the movie. He's just laying on a cot with a bullet wound, or in a hospital with a bullet wound. And this too is one of those things where, oh man, as far as I know, they never got it. The very end of the movie is all of them are in the hospital except Richard Roundtree, because they've all gotten shot except him because he knew what the fuck he was doing. But the rest of them were at least injured. So they're all laying in hospital beds. He's like, well, word about what we can do has gotten around, and I've got a job for us in Japan if you're up for it. And they're all like, oh fuck. And then the movie just ends with a dog with a cigarillo, which makes sense if you watch the movie, which is fantastic. It's just like a whole running gag with a dog that's smoking a cigar. So, Three the Hard Way, you have to see. If you have any interest in, well, whatever, it doesn't even matter. I was going to say in black action movies. Forget it. Fuck it. Action movies. You are not going to get this assemblage of raw talent and charisma like you did in this movie. This is these three guys at their prime. I wish Richard Roundtree had been in it. Man, I wish he'd been in it, because it would have been such a great, with the four of them together. I can only imagine how mighty that movie would be. Unfortunately, he's not. So the reason to watch the sequel, the real sequel, even though it isn't technically a sequel, is for Richard Roundtree, who is awesome. But just be prepared that it is a step down from 3 the Hard Way. Now, it's still worth seeing. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it, but it's not a you must see it recommendation necessarily. Like 3 the Hard Way is the one you got to see. You have to see that one. It's on Tubi. It's on Plex. I think it's on a couple other free services, so very easy to find. You can watch it for nothing. And man, you got to watch it. It's just, it's a product of the mid 70s. It's got it's got great songs like Motown stuff. If you like that type of thing, like there's really good music in it. It's got that, the that kind of like guitar stuff happening. Fucking 70s cars that are giant boats, yet they're going 900 miles an hour at each other. They're actually hitting the cars. Like I said, gunfights, squibs, there's blood everywhere. They're wiping out white supremacists, which nobody should ever have a problem with. I mean, they're mowing down these fucking neo-Nazis like it's nothing. It's great. Shotgun blast these assholes. They're going through arcade machines, off buildings, off dams, cars exploding, flaming Southern racists. It's fucking flaming meaning they're on fire all over the place. It's wonderful. Again, 1 Down, 2 to Go is just a more scaled back version. It's still fun, but it ain't nothing like that first movie. So I would say watch them both. If you like one, you'll probably like the other. The problem is it doesn't hit the same highs. So that's my only real caveat for 1 Down, 2 to Go is it's not going to get you back to the heights that 3 the Hard Way did. 3 the Hard Way is just, I wouldn't change a fucking thing about that movie. It's except add Richard Roundtree. But he was probably doing Shaft or whatever at the time. I understand.
Then it would be 4 the Hard Way.
Hey, whatever. Then you add a fourth city. Because strangely, the racists didn't target New York, which seemed odd to me because I'm like, is that a slight at New York? Fuck you. You'd go after New York. Whatever. Of course you'd go after New York. What are you kidding me? But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's still a great movie. Again, you can watch it for free. A lot of different places. And just as an action movie, forget even the blaxploitation part. I mean, that's the list I found it on. But honestly, it doesn't even matter. These guys are so awesome, it really doesn't matter. It's just that good. And, it's like I said, 1 Down, 2 to Go is still fun. It's funnier. I will say it has more humor. So there is that element to it. It does have more funny elements, especially the dog with the cigar, which does become a running gag. But it's not quite it doesn't have quite the same impact. So still worth watching, but 3 the Hard Way is the one you got to watch. So I'm going to be making my way through that list because there's movies on there where I'm like, oh, this sounds great. But that was the one where I read it. And when I was like, these 3 were in a movie together? Oh, fuck me. I got to watch it. How I never saw, I think I put that on Twitter. I think I put how 3 times and said, have I never seen this movie before? I put how like in increasing capitals that I'd never watched this because this should have come across my radar sooner. It's that good.
Well, honestly, that's hopeful. It's hopeful that there's still shit like that washes up on your shore.
That's true. I agree. Yes.
Whoa, really?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That makes me that gives me a lot of hope.
I am with you on that because, like I said, I saw this list and I looked at it and I went, oh, there's a lot of movies on here I haven't seen. I mean, Foxy Brown, Coffee. Of course, I've seen those. I've watched most of Pam Grier's stuff, for obvious reasons. But I mean, a lot of the other ones I had seen as well, because like Black Dynamite was on there, that type of stuff. I think got a mention or two. Yeah, no, it did. Michael J. White was one of them, because they were talking about, there were the obvious things. Because Shaft wasn't on there because kind of everybody's seen that one. It's like most people have seen one of the Shaft movies, if not just the original. They've seen a couple of them. So, and I have too. But a lot of these, about half of them I haven't seen. So I got to watch them because just based on this one, I'm like, okay, this is great. So yeah, 3 the Hard Way, that's the one to see. 1 Down, 2 to Go, still fun, because you get Joe Spinell and Richard Roundtree. Even though Joe Spinell's only in one thing, he's such a weirdo, it's always nice to see him pop up. And then, that's it. Is there anything else?
On that note, we should probably close before the connection goes.
One other thing, just to mention, if you, I was on the show where I was on with Len Kabaczynski doing the discussion of The Hunted is on YouTube, I think. If you look up, I'll find a link for it. I'll post it there. But that video is there. I sent it to you. I don't know if you watched it or not. But
I watched parts of it. I was in the middle. I was in the middle of things.
No, you know what I noticed? I have some kind of weird right arm tick. I've got to get that under control. I've never noticed it before because I don't do a lot of video.
A right arm.
If you watch the video, look at my. Oh wait, is it my right? Yeah, watch my right arm. It just randomly jumps out like it's some kind of verbal tick that I've got.
No, it's not. No, it's basically adding effect with your body.
Yeah, it's an effect I don't like the look of.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing is like you're used to. It's like talking with your hands. You know what I mean? Like
well, that's because I'm used to not having video, so I do all
exactly.
Kinds of
your hands act as exclamation points for your sentences.
That's why I don't do video. So anyway, that's out there. So, but 3 the Hard Way, go watch it. Don't watch me. Go watch 3 the Hard Way. That's a much better viewing experience. But a couple people have asked, so that is out there if you want to watch it. That has gone public, and I did put the podcast I did with Len on our YouTube channel, so that is there as well. So people can go watch that from the link off of our show site. I put that up like a week ago or something like that. And that's 2 podcasts combined, so that's why there's sort of a middle part that where Len's like, all right, let's wrap this up, and then we keep going for another 40 minutes. That's why I basically just smushed them together. So that's it. That's all I got for you. So, yeah, go watch 3 the Hard Way. It will make your weekend. And on that note, we shall be back again, hotspot or internet willing, next week. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.